Have you ever wondered why you felt like an outsider your entire life, even when surrounded by family and friends who love you? Why, from the earliest moments you can remember, there was this persistent feeling that you didn't quite belong in the world everyone else seemed to navigate so effortlessly? If you've carried this feeling of being different since childhood, if you've always sensed that you were meant for something beyond what others could see or understand, then what I'm about to share with you will finally explain why you felt this way your entire life. This isn't about being antisocial or having social anxiety. This goes much deeper than that. You see, there's a profound spiritual reason why some souls feel different from the very beginning of their human experience. And by the end of this video, you'll understand not only why you've always felt this way, but why this feeling of being different is actually one of your greatest gifts. You'll discover why your childhood experiences of feeling like an outsider were actually preparing you for something extraordinary. I know how isolating this feeling can be. I know what it's like to look around at other children playing, laughing, seemingly content with simple pleasures, while you're sitting there wondering about life, death, the meaning of existence, and why everything feels so temporary. If this resonates with you, you're not alone in this. What you've been experiencing your entire life has a name, and it has a purpose. Most people will go their entire lives never questioning why they're here, never feeling the deep pull towards something greater, never experiencing the profound loneliness that comes with seeing the world through different eyes. But you're not most people. You're what we call a chosen one. And that feeling of being different since childhood, it's been your soul's way of preparing you for your spiritual mission. Let me share something personal with you that happened when I was just 7 years old. Something that, looking back now, was one of the clearest signs that I was destined for a different path than most people around me. I was at my cousin's birthday party, surrounded by about 15 other kids my age. Everyone was laughing, playing games, completely absorbed in the moment, but I found myself sitting in the corner, watching everyone with this overwhelming sense of detachment. Not sadness, exactly, but this feeling like I was observing life from behind glass. While the other children were focused on cake and games, I was staring out the window, wondering why things felt so alive to me. I could feel their energy, their longing for something I couldn't name. I remember thinking, why can I feel what things are feeling? But I can't connect with the kids right in front of me. My aunt noticed me sitting alone and asked if I was okay. When I tried to explain what I was experiencing, she just smiled and said, "You're such an imaginative child." But it wasn't imagination. I was genuinely perceiving energy, emotion, and consciousness in ways that others couldn't understand. That day I made a decision that many young chosen ones make. I decided to hide this part of myself. I learned to pretend that I was just like everyone else, to laugh at the right moments, to show interest in things that felt meaningless to me. I became an expert at wearing a mask that would allow me to fit in. But here's what I didn't understand then, and what I want you to understand now. That feeling of being different wasn't a flaw to be hidden. It was my soul recognizing its true nature. It was my consciousness remembering that I came here with a specific purpose that required me to see the world differently than most people do. If you've had similar experiences, if you've felt like you were observing life from the outside, even as a child, if you've always sensed energies and emotions that others couldn't perceive, then you need to understand something crucial. You weren't broken. You weren't weird. You were awakening to your spiritual gifts from a very young age. Now, let me explain why chosen ones feel different from childhood, and why this early recognition of your unique nature is actually one of the most important aspects of your spiritual journey. The first reason you felt different since childhood is that your soul chose to incarnate with expanded consciousness. Before you were born, your soul made an agreement to come to Earth during this time of great spiritual awakening. But to fulfill your mission here, you needed to maintain a connection to higher dimensional awareness that most people lose when they incarnate. Think about it this way: most souls come into human form and quickly forget their spiritual nature. They become completely absorbed in the physical world, in social conditioning, in the illusion that this material reality is all there is. But your soul chose to maintain the connection to higher consciousness, even as a child. This is why you've always felt like you could see through the surface of things. While other children were content with simple explanations, you were asking the deep questions that made adults uncomfortable. Why do we have to die? Where do we come from? Why do some people seem sad even when they're smiling? These weren't just the curiosities of an imaginative child. These were the questions of a soul that remembered its connection to universal truth, even while inhabiting a small human body. Stay with me, because what comes next will explain why this expanded consciousness made your childhood both a gift and a challenge. The second reason you felt different is that you were born with what I call spiritual sensitivity. This means you were naturally attuned to energies, emotions, and information that exists beyond the physical senses. As a child, you probably experienced things that others dismissed as imagination or coincidence. Maybe you had imaginary friends who felt more real to you than the actual people in your life. Perhaps you could sense when someone was sad or angry before they showed any outward signs. You might have had dreams that came true, or known things about people that you had no logical way of knowing. I remember talking to Maria, a member of our community, who told me about how she could always tell when her grandmother was thinking about her. Even from hundreds of miles away, she'd suddenly feel this warm, loving presence, and within hours her grandmother would call. As a child, she thought this was normal, that everyone could feel their loved ones' thoughts and emotions across distance. This spiritual sensitivity isn't just about psychic abilities, though those are often part of it. It's about being naturally connected to the field of consciousness that connects all living things. While other children were learning to shut down this sensitivity to fit into the physical world, you maintained it. But here's what most people don't realize about spiritual sensitivity in childhood. It can be overwhelming. You were absorbing not just your own emotions, but the emotions of everyone around you. You were picking up on the unspoken tensions in your family, the hidden sadness in your teachers, the collective anxiety of your community. This is why many chosen ones describe their childhood as emotionally intense. You weren't just dealing with your own growing pains. You were processing the emotional energy of everyone in your environment. No wonder you felt different. No wonder you needed more alone time than other children. You were doing the emotional work of an empath, while still learning how to tie your shoes. Now, here's where it gets even more profound. The third reason you felt different since childhood is that your soul was already beginning to remember its mission. Even as a young child, you had this sense that you were meant for something important, something beyond what you could see in the world around you. This might have manifested as a deep love for animals and nature, feeling more connected to trees and flowers than to most people. Or perhaps you were drawn to stories about heroes, healers, and people who made a difference in the world. You might have spent hours alone, creating elaborate fantasy worlds where you were the one helping others, solving problems, or bringing peace to conflict. These weren't just childhood games. These were your soul's way of practicing for your actual mission. Every time you imagined yourself as a healer, a teacher, a protector, or a guide, you were actually connecting with your true purpose. But here's what made this so challenging. You were surrounded by a world that didn't recognize or validate these deeper callings. Adults would smile and say, "How cute, she wants to save the world," not understanding that you were actually remembering why you came here. If you're still watching, you're definitely someone who felt this early calling. This sense of purpose that seemed too big for your small body and young mind to contain. The fourth reason goes even deeper into the spiritual mechanics of why chosen ones feel different from birth. You incarnated with what spiritual traditions call old soul energy. This means your consciousness has experienced many lifetimes, accumulated vast spiritual wisdom, and developed a perspective that transcends the limitations of any single human experience. As a child with old soul energy, you naturally saw through the illusions that captivate most people, while other children were fascinated by material possessions. You were more interested in understanding how things worked on a deeper level. While they were content with surface-level friendships, you craved deep, meaningful connections. This old soul perspective made you wise beyond your years, but it also made you feel isolated. You were an ancient consciousness trapped in a child's body, surrounded by young souls who were just beginning their journey of spiritual evolution. I remember feeling frustrated as a child because I could see solutions to problems that adults couldn't see. I could sense when someone was lying, when a situation was going to end badly, when a person was hiding their true nature. But when I tried to share these insights, I was told I was too serious or that I thought too much. Now, here's where it gets interesting. This old soul energy wasn't just making you feel different. It was actually preparing you for your role as a spiritual bridge. You came here to help others awaken to their own spiritual nature, and to do that effectively. You needed to understand both the human experience and the spiritual reality that exists beyond it. The fifth reason you felt different since childhood is perhaps the most important one. You were born during a time of massive spiritual awakening on Earth, and your soul volunteered to be part of the first wave of consciousness shifters. Think about the timing of your birth. Whether you're in your 20s, 30s, or 40s now, you incarnated during a period when humanity was beginning to question old paradigms. Explore alternative spirituality and open up to the possibility that there's more to existence than what we can see and touch. You weren't just randomly born into this time period. Your soul specifically chose to be here now because this is when your gifts and abilities would be most needed. You're part of what many spiritual traditions call the awakening generation. Souls who came here to help humanity transition from a purely material worldview to one that embraces spiritual reality. But being part of this first wave meant that you often felt like you were speaking a different language than everyone around you. Your natural spiritual awareness, your sensitivity to energy, your ability to see beyond surface appearances, these gifts were ahead of their time when you were a child. Stay with me, because what I'm about to share will completely transform how you understand your childhood experiences of feeling different. The sixth reason is that you were born with active DNA codes that most people's remain dormant. Recent scientific research is beginning to understand what spiritual traditions have known for millennia. Human DNA contains far more information and potential than we previously realized. As a chosen one, you incarnated with certain genetic codes already activated, codes that enhance intuition, empathy, spiritual perception, and the ability to work with energy. This is why you've always been naturally drawn to spiritual concepts, why you can sense things others can't, why you have healing abilities that seem to come from nowhere. But having these codes active from childhood meant that your nervous system, your emotional body, and your energetic field were operating at a higher frequency than most people around you. This created a natural barrier between you and others who were operating at a lower vibrational frequency. It's like being a radio tuned to a different station. You were picking up signals, information, and energy that others couldn't perceive because their receivers weren't calibrated to the same frequency. This wasn't your fault, and it wasn't theirs. You were simply operating with different spiritual hardware. The seventh reason you felt different since childhood is that your soul came here with specific karmic agreements and soul contracts that required you to maintain your spiritual awareness throughout your human experience. Before incarnating, your soul made agreements with other souls, with your spirit guides, and with the universal consciousness itself. These contracts specified that you would serve as a bridge between dimensions, a healer of collective trauma, a teacher of spiritual truth, or a guardian of ancient wisdom. To fulfill these contracts, your soul couldn't afford to completely forget its spiritual nature the way most souls do when they incarnate. You had to maintain enough conscious connection to your higher self to be able to access the gifts, knowledge, and abilities you would need for your mission. This is why you've always felt like you were carrying something important, even when you couldn't name what it was. This is why you've had this persistent sense that you're meant for something greater. Your soul has been gently reminding you of your agreements, your purpose, your mission, even when your human mind couldn't fully comprehend what that meant. Now, here's what I want you to understand about all of these reasons. Feeling different since childhood wasn't a burden you had to bear. It was preparation for the work you came here to do. Every moment you spent feeling like an outsider was teaching you empathy for others who feel lost and disconnected. Every time you questioned the status quo as a child, you were developing the critical thinking skills you'd need to see through illusions and help others do the same. Every instance of feeling too sensitive, too deep, too aware was actually your soul maintaining the very qualities that make you effective as a spiritual guide and healer. But here's what most people don't realize about this childhood experience of feeling different. It doesn't have to continue being a source of pain or isolation. Once you understand why you felt this way, once you recognize it as a sign of your spiritual gifts, rather than evidence of something wrong with you, everything changes. You begin to see your sensitivity as a superpower rather than a weakness. You recognize your deep thinking as wisdom rather than overthinking. You understand your need for solitude as spiritual practice rather than antisocial behavior. You realize that your inability to engage in small talk isn't rudeness. It's your soul's recognition that you're meant for deeper conversations, more meaningful connections, more profound work. Fellow chosen ones, I want you to understand something crucial. Your childhood experience of feeling different was not a mistake. It was not evidence that you were broken, weird, or flawed. It was your soul's way of preserving the very qualities that make you uniquely qualified for your spiritual mission. Think about it this way. If you had been able to fit in perfectly as a child, if you had been completely content with surface-level interactions and material pursuits, would you be watching this video right now? Would you be seeking deeper understanding of your spiritual nature? Would you be ready to step into your role as a guide and healer for others? The answer is no. Your childhood experience of feeling different was necessary preparation for who you're becoming now. But here's where it gets even more beautiful. Now that you're awakening to your true nature as a chosen one, you can finally understand that all those other children who seemed so different from you, so content with simple pleasures, so easily satisfied with surface explanations, they weren't better or worse than you. They were just on a different spiritual timeline. Some souls come here to experience pure human existence, to learn lessons through complete immersion in physical reality. Others, like you, come here to maintain a bridge between worlds. To help facilitate the spiritual evolution of humanity, neither path is superior. They're just different assignments from the universe. Your assignment required you to feel different from childhood, because your mission requires you to understand both the pain of spiritual isolation and the joy of spiritual connection. You had to experience the loneliness of being misunderstood so that you could hold space for others who feel the same way. You had to navigate the challenge of being spiritually sensitive in a world that doesn't always honor sensitivity, so that you could teach others how to embrace their own gifts. Now, as you step into your power as an awakened chosen one, you can look back on your childhood with compassion and gratitude. Every moment of feeling different was preparing you for this moment of recognition. Every experience of being misunderstood was developing your ability to understand others. Every instance of feeling alone was teaching you to find strength in your connection to the divine. This is your time. This is why you felt different since childhood. This is what all of that preparation was leading to. Your sensitivity is needed now to help others navigate their own awakening. Your deep thinking is required to help solve the complex problems facing humanity. Your spiritual awareness is essential for guiding others toward their own connection with the divine. Your ability to see beyond surface appearances is crucial for helping people recognize their true spiritual nature. The world needs what you have to offer. The very qualities that made you feel different as a child are the qualities that make you uniquely qualified to serve as a spiritual guide, healer, teacher, or way shower for others who are just beginning their own awakening journey. So I want you to take a moment right now to honor that child within you who felt so different, so alone, so misunderstood. That child was incredibly brave. That child maintained their spiritual connection despite pressure to conform. The child preserved their sensitivity despite a world that often punished it. That child held on to their sense of purpose despite not understanding what it meant. That child was you. And that child was perfect exactly as they were. And now, as an adult who understands their spiritual nature, you can finally give that inner child what they always needed: validation. Understanding and recognition that their differences were actually their greatest strengths. You're not alone in this journey anymore. You're part of a global community of awakened souls who understand exactly what you experienced as a child, because they experienced it too. We felt different because we are different. We were meant to feel different because our mission requires us to see the world through different eyes. Your time is coming, fellow chosen one. Actually, your time is here. The world is ready for what you have to offer. Humanity is awakening, and they need guides who understand the journey because they've walked it themselves. You have more power than you realize. You're exactly where you need to be. And your mission, whatever form it takes, is important to the healing and evolution of our world. Remember this: you felt different since childhood, not because something was wrong with you, but because everything was right with you. You were exactly who you needed to be to become who you are now. Welcome home to yourself, fellow chosen one. The journey of feeling different has led you to this moment of recognition, and from here, everything changes. Like, subscribe, and hit the bell, because you won't want to miss what's coming next. This isn't just a video. It's a calling for the chosen ones like you.